What's up people, hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video here at Most Amazing Top 10. Honestly, I need to go on the record here and say I used to really make fun of sororities like all the time. It just seemed so cultish and all the girls just seemed like the snobby popular ones from school that were just bitches anyway. And for some reason they would just stop at nothing to try and initiate you into Bai Theta Kappa. I mean please, I'm just trying to get to class, I don't need this harassment. But in my 4th year I realized the sisterhood was actually genuine and I had no friends, so maybe I should have joined a sorority after all. Either way, if you've ever been to a Greek party, you know these houses can be pristine or they can be pure trash. And that's just the house itself, not even what goes on there, so let's get into it. This is the top 10 scary sorority house stories. Starting us off at number 10 is the unsanctioned. Honestly, this one didn't surprise me considering I've heard and read about so many stories now where sororities or frats take it too far, and this is no exception. At Alpha Kappa Alpha in California State University way back in 2002, students Kenitha Safa and Kristen High were super excited to be pledging at the chapter. Kristen was your typical type A daughter, very intelligent, athletic, a leader on campus, and she was also the mother of a 2-year-old son. And joining this specific chapter is something she had always wanted to do. The weeks of pledging were brutal, she came home late and exhausted every single night, but her mother didn't really think too much about it. One night the 2 girls and 2 other pledges were asked to do hours and hours of exercise and calisthenics and then walk backwards into the ocean. Mind you, Kenitha didn't even know how to swim, so it was never gonna end well. A wave came and swept her further away from the coast, and Kristen actually went after her to try and save her, but the waves were so volatile both girls ended up drowning. The next morning, a few of the girls dropped Kristen's car off at her house, but not before deleting all the sorority girls' numbers off her phone and getting rid of her pledge journal. Neither of the surviving 2 pledges spoke to the families about what actually happened that day, probably from pressure or fear from the girls in the sorority. The families of both girls ended up suing the sorority over death claims, but the university stated that Alpha Kappa Alpha wasn't even sanctioned by the university and that they hadn't recognized the chapter since 1989. A cop involved in investigating the case said he had an easier time infiltrating street gangs than he did the sorority. And honestly, it really should be the other way around. Coming in at number 9 are the Coles. This one is actually horrendous and it happened at Binghamton University in New York back in 2012. Honestly, I'm a bit annoyed they didn't name the specific sorority this happened at, but anyway, during pledge week, many girls reported that sorority sisters made them all stand in freezing showers while reciting the Greek alphabet. They then force-fed them pills so they would vomit on each other, and worst of all, they made them hold hot shisha or hookah coals in their hands. I mean, I always knew hazing could get pretty rough, like downing a lot of drinks and whatnot, but this is actual physical torture. What are sorority sisters even getting out of it at that point? I have no idea. At number 8, we have the walk home. So back in 2002, Revital Segal decided to rush Kappa Kappa Gamma during her sophomore year at Dartmouth University. One night she was picked up with 2 other pledges, they were blindfolded and then shoved into a moving vehicle and forced to drink 64 ounces of spiked punch each, and then vodka shots right after that. The excessive alcohol drinking took place in under 15 minutes, after which she was pushed out of the car and told to walk home. She got up out of the car and remembered absolutely nothing after that. The next morning she woke up in the intensive care unit at the Hitchcock Medical Center with 2 of the other pledges and another girl from another sorority. She woke up with 2 of her front teeth broken and cuts and bruises all over her. The doctor told her she had almost comatose herself, and if she had had one more sip she would have died. Filling our number 7 slot is the meal. Back in 2009, Jasmine Johnson rushed Delta Sigma Theta at the University of Tennessee. Before long she was sent to the hospital for various injuries. She claimed the sisters started by punching her in the face while squirting vinegar into her eyes and pouring ice cold water on her head. Can that honestly not make someone go blind? Like, vinegar is acidic. I feel like something doesn't add up there. But anyway, she said after that they smashed eggs onto her body while punching her in the stomach and head, and they were punching her so hard she ended up with a concussion and vaginal bleeding. The sorority sister that was responsible for the assault ended up getting arrested, so at least justice was semi-served. Now at number 6 is the ultimatum. Now the name of the pledge as well as the sorority was removed from the story, so I don't know which one it was, but the story is still worth sharing. The pledge admitted to a former sorority girl that during the ordeal, the sisters gave her an ultimatum. She could either do a bump of cocaine or use a pleasure toy in front of them, but she had to do one or the other. I feel like there's such a weird power dynamic / struggle emerging from all these stories. Like, why would you want to force someone to do drugs or pleasure themselves in front of you? It's not fun for anyone, and I'm sure even the sisters watching went over the moon watching it. Like, there's no need. Coming in at number 5 are the clones. This story is from Ali, who submitted her experience to 17 magazine. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen that video on Twitter or Instagram where the door opens to a sorority and they're all just collectively chanting some unintelligible words that I found out is actually their door song. So sororities sing their door song during recruitment, so girls want to rush that specific sorority, and the presentation during the door song is ranked based on how pretty the girls are. So if you're more good looking, you're placed at the front, and so on. She goes on saying they all had to wear the exact same thing, Lululemon skirts and white Nike tennis shoes. They even had to get dress checked in front of their execs so they could approve their upcoming 2 weeks of outfits. And they all had to wear the same nail polish. The color is Bubble Bath, for anyone wondering. Another girl called Alexis, who was on the rushing side of it, said it was the worst experience of her life. While rushing, they all had to rate each other in terms of appearance, size, style, etc. And at one point was told to cut the shit with the bleeding hearts and start giving ugly girls 0. And I know this story wasn't scary per se, but I wanted to talk about it anyway to push the fact that there are thousands and thousands of 18 or 19-year-old girls all going through this in their first year of university. Like, imagine getting rated on things you may be insecure about. Like, anyway, what is society? These things don't matter. If you're watching this, you are beautiful, end of story. I actually had an ex who was in a frat who told me I was too ugly to be in a sorority. We are not together anymore. At number 4 is the Jeep. So back in October 2003, 10 sorority pledges at Sigma Kappa Omega were taken into a Jeep blindfolded and told they were being taken into the wilderness. The trip was dubbed the punishment trip because the girls had refused to complete all of their hazing chores, and the point was to be left in the middle of nowhere, no supplies, no compass, nothing, and find their way home. Which is just a bad idea to begin with. These girls are sorority girls, not Bear Grylls. What do you expect? Either way, on the drive there, the sister behind the wheel started swerving just to freak the pledges out, but the Jeep ended up slipping on the wet pavement and completely flipping. A pledge called Kelly Nestor was thrown out of the Jeep and sustained critical blunt impact injuries to her torso and head and ended up dying. Filling at number 3 slot is the washing machine. So Johanna Birch decided to write an article about her hazing experience at Gamma Psi at Young Harris College. She said while she was pledging, all the girls were taken to the woods near the house and forced to crawl through the mud and then into the freezing lake while the sorority sisters spat on them and screamed at them. Like, just thinking of it makes me feel how degraded they must have felt. It's horrible, and I wish that was the worst part, but it really wasn't. They were then made to stand in a pool of water that the other members had defecated in, then sit naked on a washing machine, during which any body part that moved was subsequently circled with a Sharpie. But weirdly enough, the school never let Jo publish the article, and they also fired the professors working with her on it. I mean, cover-ups, when will they end? We need justice, people. Now at number 2 is the sex ring. In May of last year, the Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter at Georgia's Fort Valley State University was suspended for shocking allegations. The allegations claimed the sorority was running a sex ring with the sisters, pledges, and one administration employee at the college. The story was that the house itself had a possible trafficking room that was run by the sorority's advisor. Pledges were coerced into performing sexual acts with random men as part of their initiation, but the real reason was to help other AKA sisters pay off their school fees. Customers of the sex ring include local businessmen and politicians. The alleged advisor involved resigned soon after, saying, "I'm not a pimp, I'm not a madam, this is ridiculous." The sorority itself vehemently denied these allegations, saying it goes against everything they stand for. I mean, and I'd love to believe that, but this is also the second time this sorority has made the list. I mean, they were at number 10 as well, so take everything with a grain of salt. And finally, at number 1 is Miss America. So the winner of the pageant in 2015 was Kira Kazantsev, and on paper she seemed quite clean. Trilingual, promotes women's health, funny, seems like the perfect Miss America, doesn't she? Wrong. In April of 2013, Kira, who was the head of Alpha Phi's recruitment, was kicked out of the sorority at Hofstra University. The first red flag was that after her win, neither the National Alpha Phi organization or her specific one acknowledged her win. And you know how universities are with alumni. If you achieve anything, they'll be all over the moon and publish it in their newspaper and basically everywhere. In the fall of 2012, Kira subjected pledges to what another sister called a living hell. She gave them all derogatory nicknames, berated them for their physical imperfections, made them perform very taxing physical activities, but 9 stories in, we know that's all standard. But it was the last 2 steps of the pledging process that take the cake. The first one involved making the pledges take off their underwear, sit on newspaper and watch lesbian porn, and when the video was over, whoever's newspaper stuck to them was labeled a dyke and kicked out of the sorority. The remaining girls were then forced to perform oral sex on their big sisters. Honestly, how can someone who slandered people in the LGBT plus community win Miss America. That's homophobia. Not clean after all, are you, Kira? And there you have it, guys. Half of Greek life right here, and the other half obviously being frats, which, by the way, if you guys do want to see a video on fraternities or a part 2 to this one, comment below. It's actually very weird. I knew a lot of people in frats and sororities in uni, but they always said it was like the best thing ever, and now I'm like, were they lying? Or did they just feel like after enduring all that hazing, they earned it? I don't really know. But anyway, guys, I've been your host, Ayman Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!